Okay, guess this is chapter 15. By the way, how do you like this beer? It's getting a little long, ain't it? Anyway, I need to go back and correct myself. I did look back through this journal of mine, and I found out that I get to Pocatello, go into Portland, and after I left there, I dropped down to Salem to see Maggie, and we toured the Oregon coast, and within a few days, I was headed back north to Seattle. I almost forgot about that route because Seattle, I ended up finding out from Spokane I could cut through Burns to Klamath Falls, and it was quicker than going all the way across and down. But so I hitchhiked up to Seattle, and let's see here, a lot of hitching and walking. Ended up in Montana with my chickens to my chicken coop storage shed. Started going to Votech school. It says school is so intense. Not much time for anything else. Sister, another cat, has made herself at home. That makes four of us. I'm the state vice president for DECA, which is Distributive Education Clubs of America, and pretty active. Could be a pretty good thing. Don't know where it's going, but summer's coming and I'm waiting. Later, getting a grip on things at last. Maybe 2 or 3 classes a day. I've got to have the time that I can call just mine to walk along and be aware and breathe that pure, fine air. If life is a joke, then so am I. If I have some ideas of what I should be doing, then I'm not complete until I am. Some pros and cons of what I got, what I don't have. January 1974. To be broke on foot, not much food, and no milk. To mope, to laugh. I sure would like to grab my pack and a few things and stroll on down to the highway, but God willing, there's summer coming. Life is pretty hollow in the wee hours of the night when you're alone. And then there was, I got invited down to a Christmas dinner here at those neighbors next door to my landlady down the hill a ways. And they had this 16-year-old girl, Kyle. She was a cutie. And I had carved, I kind of wished I'd have stopped and see if they still had that, but it was out of soapstone, and I carved a Santa Claus sitting on the pot, and with this bag of toys and everything, and I just wrote Santa's first stop and gave that to him as a Christmas present, and it was neat. Kyle was a cutie, young. I was 26 then, I guess, so she's 10 years younger than me. And the only reason I remember that was on New Year's. I went down there, and she walked over and threw a lip lock on me in front of her parents that just had me beat red. It's like, holy crap, girl. And they let it happen, laughed at her or something. But anyway, her brother was the young fellow that had grown up there on the side of this mountain, and he'd walk down the hill like duck season. You'd see him with a shotgun walking down the hill. He had to go underneath the freeway and over the tracks, and then there's the stream, and then you had canyons, and he'd be coming back with some ducks. He knew where ducks were. Same with every season. He'd come back with fish because he knew where the fish were, and deer season opened the first day. All of a sudden, there's a buck hanging on the tree outside, and elk. He admitted finally it was a lucky shot because he hit it on the run, and he aimed high and it caught him in the neck and just dropped him. But he had a big old 1,500-pound elk hanging on that tree next to that deer. And of course, it's cold enough up there you could leave it outside, and they'd go out and hacksaw off a chunk, and that was their freezer in the wintertime. But which was fun to meet people like that, Anyway, okay, let's see here. And time moves on. Deck is dead. School's a joke. I start a business. Gary's appliance repair. Which, by the way, I'm pretty sure I just closed that up. And I don't remember if I did that before my trip to South Dakota or not, to answer Amanda's question. And the dog is gone. I had this dog. It's a black German Shepherd cross between that and a Labrador, I assume. And the way, little story about her, I loved her dearly, but I, this black German Shepherd comes running up the side of the hill. I'm out in front of my little cabin doing something, and friendly as can be and smart. And she decided to hang around. So she hadn't been there, but I think the fella that lived down the street, he was an old fella, and he had some land next to my landlady's, and he comes walking up a day or so later, and he says, he had asked me if that was my dog, and I said, no, she just wandered up here. So he comes back up, and he said, I thought that you said that wasn't your dog. And I said, she just decided to stay. Why? And he said, because she just killed my baby lamb. I said, are you kidding me? And he said, no, I want to show you. So I put a collar on this dog. She's pretty full grown. And we walked down there, and boy, you could tell she was just ashamed. I mean, dogs can sure look guilty when they are. And we got up next to that where she had killed it, started eating on damn lamb, newborn. I took her up there and I just beat her ass, and she never did mess with him again. But that was good enough for him to keep from wanting to just shoot her ass, and I didn't have to pay for the poor lamb. But anyway, her name was Lady, and she was an awesome dog. Her and I used to go hiking every day after school, and she loved to play fetch. And I could take a Frisbee. I'm living on a steep side of a hill, and I could throw that Frisbee downhill, and it would go forever, clear down. And she would race down there and grab it and come back. And she was good for about 3 at the most. And by then, she was so tired that she was done playing fetch. But when I'd go for a walk, like we'd get by this stream, sometimes that Frisbee would end up in the water, and she'd go right down and get it. I mean, it wasn't that deep, but she'd stick her head under there and get that. And the other thing I remember about Lady was she wanted to play. Anyway, she drug over this big ass tree limb. I mean, good sized pine, and it was heavy enough that I'd have to do a skip and a jump and a toss, and it wouldn't go all that far. But she'd go grab it and drag it back for more. And one of those times, I'd skipped, hopped, and put everything I had into swinging it, and she stuck her head in the road. And I mean, that branch exploded on her head into several pieces, and she just whined and backed up, and I'm all sorry, and she got a big old knot over her eye. But loved that dog. Anyway, story with the dog was not that neighbor with the lamb, but the next one down. They felt like they owned that mountain. Maybe they did. I don't honestly know, but they were assholes. I know they poached about 7 deer a year, and that was part of their groceries. And Gallatin Valley had the county had the most unsolved murders almost anywhere in the United States, and they almost all were game wardens. People took their groceries pretty serious in that neck of the woods. Anyway, somebody had built a damn house on the side of the hill up behind me, and they had this yappy little dog. And anyway, but past their property line still belonged to this other character, and he set out a coyote bait. So he had meat with traps set in a circle around it. And I think I was gone that weekend doing something, but I come back and found out that the neighbor's dog had been caught in like 2 of them traps, and just yelped and yelped and yelped, and I don't remember if it killed him or what the hell. That dog was gone. But anyway, you think my black Sherman Shepherd could stay away from that baited calf up there? No. I mean, it got to where I couldn't even let her go outside because she would immediately try and sneak off and go up there. And I just knew she was going to get hurt really, really bad, Finally, I couldn't stand it. I mean, there was no stopping her. So what I ended up doing was put her in the truck and drove to Williston and let her out and ditched her. I always figured, at least it's karma. You're either going to find another good family somewhere far away from that trap and live, a good life or you're going to end up, getting shuffled to the pound and put to sleep. But I didn't have the guts to do anything like that. And I wanted to live I really loved that dog. We had a lot of hikes together and everything. And Wizard was a cat that I had picked up in Salem, Oregon, where Margaret was. And he was a long-haired young Tom. And the only thing I remember about him was I had tail trained him from the time he was little. And I remember as we're spending winter in this chicken coop cabin, I was able to pet him and pick him up by his tail and just hold him there, and move him to the counter or somewhere and set him down. And that was pretty normal stuff for him. And one time I picked him up off the counter because I was going to wash dishes or something, and swung over and just decided, I wonder how long I could just hold this guy, So I just held him there. Finally, he twisted his head and looked at me like saying, what the hell are you doing? And I laughed and set him down. But Wizard would also go with these hikes. And I'd be climbing up this steep hillside with Lady and Wizard. And, he'd kick loose like a pine cone, and that damn cat would chase that pine cone down the side of the mountain till finally she'd either catch it or it'd stop or something, and she'd turn around. And after about 2 or 3 of those, she is crying, but, as she makes her way back up to us, I mean, she's tired as hell, but there's something about them pine cones that anyway, I'd reach like a cliff to where I knew nobody was going to climb this but me, but I'd go ahead and climb it, and they'd just have to find their own way, which they always did. So they were my companions as I'm going to school and living out alone and whatnot. Unfortunately, when it come time to go to Martin, I think that's when it was that I just left him there. And landlady said that first night I was gone, he just sat there on a fence post in the snow, waiting for me to come home. And when I didn't, he was gone. So good luck for him too. That's another one of my great cats. And it also kind of a clue of how I handled shit like that. But all right. Later in March, this is 74. Am sick, flu sick. Been a long time since I was so wasted. Got to just stay home and bear it out. I remember saying, Lord, if you were thinking of taking me out of here anytime soon, now it'd sure be a good time because I feel like I'm dying. Let's see. Goodies I have now as opposed to the 2 pop bottles I had when I got here was $150 worth of tools, the shop, the cabin, money each month, a new pack, car and insurance, and a bunch of stuff. Nothing to cause more than 1 hour's consideration before doing whatever urges call. And refer to back to another book. Okay. So shortly after that last writing, I boogied. I went to South Dakota for spring break. Never really got back. I boogied to California. Actually, I went down there and said hi to the folks and went up to Lancaster. They have, if you're a citizen of California, you can go to junior college for nothing. So I went to Antelope Valley Junior College, and they had a class in, I believe it wasn't appliance repair, it was welding, sheet metal. No, welding and steam fitting, I think. I thought, oh, okay. So I talked to the counselors. They guaranteed me it was all set up now, and my school payments for GED would be coming to the school by the time school started. I had all summer to kill. So I went down, and that's when I told Brother Steve that if he graduated from high school, I'd take him on the road, turn him on to freight hopping. So I ride boogie to California, tripped, boogie back to Montana, tripped, boogie back to California, and Steve joined the stream. Had one of those summers you dream of. We did it all. Back to California and some school, some work, some tools, and still alone at night. Well, that's up to today. I've returned to the bedroom, packed the pack, saw this and filled it in to date. Now I'm going to throw it all away and start all over, and life continues. Okay. This is this is one of those times. When I get back with Brother Steve, I don't know if this is difficult for me. Um, but I'm sure you're all kind of curious. This is when I met your mom. Uh, when I brought Steve back after tripping for the summer. She, apparently everybody knew about this but me, but she had some kind of plan where her and her best friend were going to be sleeping out in a camper next door. And my folks were gone, and Steve took off with his buddies, and there I am alone at the folks' house, and Debbie was almost a fixture, I guess, at my folks' house. So her and a friend, even though everybody was gone, came right in, turned on the kitchen light, and made enough noise. I finally got up, find out what was going on, and long story short, anyway, shows you I was 27 by then. You'd think I'd know better, but she was 17. And I had left Montana to come to California thinking I needed to find a woman, somebody that could dig doing what I'm doing, and I thought it just would hardly be fair because I grew up in San Diego, California. I figured, you've met most of the crazies there are in the world by the time you're through high school in California. So I thought the only one that's going to be able to relate would be a California. And boy, that's stupid thinking, but that's what I was thinking. So I went to California looking for a woman, and that was before I picked Steve up and everything. Well, bang, there she was, so to speak. And so I went to school, and after like 8 months or something like that, I still hadn't got my damn GED checks. So I finally had to drop out of that school and get a job, man. I was broke. And I got a job as working for an outfit that was paying well, but they'd pick you up at the butt crack of dawn and you wouldn't get home until late because you had to drive all the way to Air Force Base, whatever it was, where my dad worked, I think. Anyway, I drove one of them tractors they used to pull airplanes, or the luggage cart or whatever. And I was pulling a compressor, those big air hose compressors, and I was blowing the cracks out of the runways. What they were doing was chiseling them out, blowing them clean, and then pouring blacktop back in. Not blacktop, but tar. They're expansion joints.
Gary,
So, Mama.
I'm going to lie down.
Okay.
For 20 minutes.
Okay.
I don't want any longer than that. I've got a lot
to do.
I just
can't
seem to get to move.
Okay. Better not last no more than 20 minutes or I'm in trouble. Anyway, I was making good money, but they worked 7 days a week. And pretty soon I've got like stacks of paychecks even that are sitting on my dresser. I haven't had time to cash them. And I had found that as I ran out of clothes to wear, there was a convenience store that was open on the way home that sold clothes also. So I'd go buy another pack of underwear and another pair of Levi's, t-shirt. And pretty soon I got a small mountain of those sitting in my bedroom. And I finally told them guys, listen, I got to take a day off. I mean, I'm out of clothes and, and they said, well, if you do, then you're done. And I thought about it for a second and I said, well, I guess I'm done then because I can't go on like this. So I was done with that job, too bad, but I had quite a bit of money now. And of course I'd stopped going to school. Well, so I called my dad up and asked if I could come down to stay at his place for a while I figured out what I was doing. And he said, sure. So he came and got me. And of course I got all this money and all of a sudden my checks start showing up, like 8 months late. And I was so pissed off by then because I was in debt. I forget, probably borrowed some from Dad too. But so I let them keep coming for a while. I ended up owing them some money to pay back too. And that put me right next door to Debbie. So I think she had some kind of challenge about catching the old hippie next door, and she did. And so there we are. I figured I need to get out of there. So she hadn't finished high school yet. I think she dropped out and was working or something, but she wanted to finish high school. I wanted her to finish high school, and I wanted her to turn 18. So I jumped a train, and I remember it was her and Steve drove me down to the LA freight yard, and I didn't know it, but she had slipped $3 in my pocket. I'm assuming it was her. Steve wouldn't have done that. Anyway, as I'm walking along, two things. I remember I met an old hobo, and he was boiling 1 ear of corn in a can. And he was, you get one half of it boiled and you turn it over and stick it in the other side. And he would say, well, they're good because you can brush your teeth with them afterwards. It's a cute idea. And so I'm walking on looking for a place to get on. And here, sitting right in the middle of an open door on a boxcar, is a $3. I don't remember if there was something sitting on it to hold it or not, but there it was, not a soul around. That's just how it seemed to work with me. So now I had money, and I jumped in the boxcar, and I forget where, but a colored guy jumped on, a young guy, and we ended up in Tehachapi, I think, and the train stopped. So I got off and went in, took my $6 and bought some more supplies, and him and I ate, and we trying to remember. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, I got to mention this too. This was in April '75. Brother Steve, I think one of his connections ended up getting us. They found some LSD, and I said nobody else had been to the Grand Canyon. I had, so we took Dino and Randy and him and me. They were his friends. We jump in my panel truck and we head for the Grand Canyon. Friday night, we drove straight through, got there. That was where we left our cigarettes on the top and hiked to the bottom, spent the night, scurried back to the top, grabbed them cigarettes. But we did some stupid things, we hadn't eaten very good, so we go to this restaurant, and I am here to tell you, we ordered a breakfast, eggs, bacon, whatever. The hash brown square was about that big, and they were pullet eggs. I mean, this was such a ripoff for the money that I was outraged. And I thought, I'm not even going to pay for this. So I just got up and left. And I guess they did too. And actually, nobody paid for the breakfast. We just left, which was wrong as can be. And then they got away with that so slick that some of them went into the gift store and stole a couple things. Anyway, we get back, we jump in the truck, we head out. We get to 60 miles out of Yellowstone. I just stopped and picked up a hitchhiker, and all of a sudden the steering wheel's acting all weird, and I quick pull her to a stop. And one of the front tires had broken at the spindle, and the front tire was holding that side of the truck up. It was completely off. Maybe what saved us was stopping to pick up that hitchhiker. But so anyway, now I had to hitchhike back. I did hitchhike back to Yellowstone. They had a shop there, and the guy has to drive out and hook on, and tow, and drive us back to his shop. And he's saying, well, I can tell you this right now. It takes 3 days to get parts. So you're going to be stuck here for 3 days while the parts come from Flagstaff. Okay, so we're inside this truck. It's a panel truck, no windows. It snowed. Maybe this is on the second trip. Anyway, the part finally comes, and it's the wrong part. So now it's going to be another 3 days and a weekend or something before they send the right part. So we're stuck, all of us, in this panel truck. And Dino one of my brother's friends it's the opposite of a sugar diabetic, as I understand it, and he needs to shoot up peanut oil or some weird stuff. If he don't, he starts drinking water like by the gallon, and which he was doing. It was pretty freaky just to watch. But finally, his folks wired him some money to catch a bus and get his butt back home to get his stuff. So Dino hits the road. Now it's just Randy and Steve and I, and we're getting pretty grubby now. It's been like a week of all of us. The only thing we had to heat it with is I had my Coleman stove. So we fired that Coleman stove up as it's snowing and opened windows so we wouldn't get carbon monoxide out. And I ended up having to save the day. I went down to the bar and kind of let myself get picked up by a gal that worked there. And she invited us to her room if we'd slip in the back door. And got to do our laundry and take a shower and clean up, and had a small price to pay. Anyway, so it was after this that we did this acid, and I remember sitting on a rock way down to the bottom. Man, this is early on. You wanted to sit on the edge, that was your business. And it was almost like it was a cloudy day, and the clouds would open up and sunshine would throw a line down to some part of the canyon. And it was like God was saying, and look at this one. And we'd go, wow, it's totally blown away. Anyway, so we get back home, and of course, I lost my job. And I don't know what happened to them. Anyway, so let's see what I got here. Broken drug spindle. Ended up leaving for South Dakota. Oh, okay. So yeah, I decided I better get out of here and leave this girl alone and give her a chance to graduate and turn 18. So I head for South Dakota, only now I'm looking for a place to camp out and wait. So I go there and end up out on the Houck farm. Of course, if you're willing to work and live in a tent, you're welcome out there. So I'm waiting, and shit, I got to admit, we had lots of things going on in California, and we get back to South Dakota, and there ain't anything around to smoke or nothing. So Steve and me hopped a freight to California to score some, and back to South Dakota, got into the farm. Now there's a direction for me. I love being on the farm. All right, so Debbie ended up, I guess we talked on the phone some, but she ended up not telling anybody and bought a plane ticket and flew out to Rapid City, South Dakota, and none of her folks or anybody knew she was going to do that. I didn't, till she told me she had done it, was going to do it. So she flies out, we're on the farm. That's a whole nother bunch of little stories, and then it says, we decide to head south. 0 degrees, 40-mile-an-hour wind, no truck heater. We ran out of money in Jacksonville, Florida, which is where I am now. Little about being broke in the city with a vehicle that drinks gas. And you get there on Thanksgiving, a 4-day weekend. We found an empty parking lot and spent about 3 nights there. Did some walking around. That was called the Treaty Tree, oddly enough. It's across the river from downtown. Located Manpower, the YMCA, the Mission, Employment Office, and Hawk Shop. Hawked some tools and got by. But Manpower wasn't the place. It was Blue Collar AIDS in Jacksonville, and I didn't know that. I went to Manpower and said, well, damn day, and I couldn't get out. So I was getting a little worried. Told Debbie, maybe you ought to see if you can't get a job till I can plan something. And she got a job immediately at a Chinese restaurant. I looked around, found a really good job as a gardener, janitor, handyman. $1.25 a week start, and tomorrow's a raise. Eventually, we found a cool place to park, and shortly we scored a house with a big yard, just looking better. I'm saying, actually, it's reflection time, and it's really the only real direction, all of it. There is a source. It can be absorbed, and his way for you becomes the focus of your attention. I want desperately to be suitable for the presence of he, and I want to marry Debbie, and if I'm allowed the time, I just might make it. So I'm going to stop right there. This is chapter 15.